In this short video, I want to look at one of investing's no-brainers, the individual savings account. How often do you get to earn tax-free returns? Not very often, so this one's well worth looking at. So here's an overview. Basic principle, what are ISAs? ISAs are not a product in themselves. The way it works is you choose products which are eligible to go into an ISA, and the ISA acts as a tax wrapper around the outside, shielding, if you want to see it that way, what's inside from further income tax and capital gains tax. Pretty handy stuff. Now, what could be underneath the tax wrapper? So you choose things which can go into an ISA, and it's just a case of filling in the relevant paperwork, if you like, to make sure that the things you've chosen are sheltered within an ISA. So cash, not very exciting at the moment. Cash interest rates are pretty low. Nonetheless, you can earn interest tax-free. Shares, including those on AIM. Now I've put that in brackets because that indicates that the government is increasingly widening the range of things that can go in, and that's true. So lots of shares now qualify for the ISA treatment, and that means that you're not going to pay any further tax on dividends, for example, capital gains tax when you sell them. Corporate bonds can go in, and the government's lifted the previous 5-year restriction on those. UK gilts, that's government IOUs, unauthorised funds. So you could pop a unit trust in there, for example, all the time thinking no further income tax to pay at the point it goes in, no future capital gains tax. Pretty neat. Now, key features. All right, and these are just some highlights, if you like. The annual allowance keeps rising. This is all good news. Not only is the range of investments you can go in getting longer and longer and longer, the list, but the amount you can pop in there is increasing. Slight increase on the previous year, 2015-2016. That's 6th of April 2015 to 5th of April 2016. We're up to 15,240. So the government's tweaking that up all the time. And married couples get one each, worth bearing in mind. Transfers from investments to cash and vice versa are allowed. So you're not entirely trapped once you've made an allocation between different types of asset. There is scope to change it. That's quite useful. Withdrawals are allowed at any time. This is not an age-restricted product like pensions, for example. You can pull your money out at any time. One caveat, if you do that, you are then giving up the opportunity to get any future tax breaks on that capital. It's kind of a once-off movement out of the ISA wrapper. Complete flexibility about the split between cash and investments, as I'll just illustrate in a moment. And one of the more recent changes, just showing more flexibility coming down the line, a spouse can preserve the ISA asset tax advantages. So on the death of one spouse, the other can potentially take the assets from the deceased ISA, pot them into their own and preserve the tax benefits going forward. And that's a relatively new change, just a bit more flexibility being added on all the time with these things. Now, how could you use it? Well, pretty straightforward. You've got just over 15,000 to play with in the current tax year. So you can allocate that all to cash. You can allocate that all to those other investments, corporate bonds, shares, unit trusts and so on. You could do a 50-50 split if you wanted to, and you can make this decision each tax year. It's not like last year's decision then binds you for the next 5 years or anything like that. Or a little bit of one, loads of the other. So really very, very flexible now about how you allocate the 15,240 across those various eligible investments. And what's the point? Well, here's the power of an ISA. Put those tax advantages together with compounding, and you get some quite interesting results. If I were to take, now I've done a round number here in fairness, so I've taken 15,000 as £1,250 per month, and we'll do this for 15 years. So we'll assume we're going to do the same amount over 15 years. Now in reality, you can probably increase it as the allowance increases. Let's do the same amount every month for 15 years. And I just picked 1,250 because it's sort of a round number. You don't have to use the full allowance, by the way. You can use any amount up to it. What would happen if you got, now you don't know what you're going to get, but 3% growth, 6% growth, and 9% growth. So kind of cautious, middling, and aggressive, all right, from the investments you've chosen. What would that look like? How would that perform for you? Well, there's the cash going in. That's just £1,250 a month for 15 years, or 225,000, which is why the green bar stops at the same point in all three cases. Here's the question though. Ignoring charges, what tax-free growth could you add on top at a 3% growth rate? And there it is, a little blob of icing on the top. At 6%, a much bigger dollop, At 9%, almost more icing than cake, if you want to see it that way. And the actual amounts there are 225 in plays 283,500. At the end, if you like, of 15 years, 225 in the middle plays 360, and 225 plays a whopping 462. Were you to get 9% growth? Nothing's guaranteed. That's fairly aggressive, but who knows? So you can see the benefit in white of that tax shelter. Now, other points worth knowing, and I've got highlights here. This isn't the whole story, but the highlights. Married couples get one allowance each per tax year. So this is now a pretty powerful thing. Bear in mind the flexibility, the fact you can go in and out, choose from a range of investments, lots of choice, take your money out if you need to. So, over £30,000 between a married couple going in every tax year if you want to. Use it or lose it. Be careful. Unlike pensions allowances, you can't carry this forward. Right? So if you miss the 5th of April deadline to use the allowance for the current tax year, then you're stuffed. You've got to go to next year. You can't sort of claw it back thinking, damn, I should have used it. Different providers can be used for cash and investments. So you've got flexibility there about who you choose to have your bank account with, for example, as opposed to your investments. Obviously, shopping around makes sense. Don't forget the ISA is just the tax shelter. It's not the investments themselves. Lump sum or regular investing, there's lots of flexibility there. If you've got the kind of cash flow where you just want to do a lump sum at the start or the end of the tax year, great. But if you prefer to drip it in, no problem either. Plenty of flexibility about that. And transfers between providers are allowed subject to terms. You're not stuck either for eternity with the split of investments you choose or the person who provides them. Subject to your terms and conditions, you can make changes later. So pretty flexible product. Now, before I finish, a word about junior ISAs, because not only could a married couple potentially do this for themselves, they could also do it for their children. So just a quick word about this, a summary. In the current tax year, 2015-16, up to £4,080 can be popped into a junior ISA on behalf of the child and then gets similar tax benefits to an adult ISA if you like. Anyone can contribute once the account is open. This is not restricted to parents, grandparents, other members of the family could contribute too. Child has full access to the account from the age of 18. Now this is the downside for some people. Do I want to put the full allowance in knowing my child could take it out at the age of 18 and do anything with it? Well, maybe not, but you are giving them a substantial leg up if you can persuade them to use it to pay for university fees or a deposit on a house, for example. And even if you only do it once, say £4,080 goes in the full allowance for this year once at the start and grows at a real rate of 5%. That's a kind of middling UK equity rate for the last 50 years. Over 18 years, that could be worth, for really very little work, just under £10,000 in real purchasing power at the point it's taken out. So quite a handy little boost off just one contribution and very little work in the middle. So hopefully now you can see why ISAs and their sort of baby version, the JISA, are, to many people, one of the few investing no-brainers.